What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction video. In this one we have moving to Poland from America. Top 10 Poland shocks that blew my mind. Very excited and intrigued to dive into this. Before we do, if you happen to enjoy, please don't forget to subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. Let's check out how great Poland is, or 10 shocks Poland gave this American.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Explore with Kojo. Today we are talking about 10 of the crazy culture shocks that I had as an American that moved to Poland. Overall, I am Polish, so my nationality is Polish, and both my mother and my father are both 100% Polish. So I was born in the United States of America, and I have lived there for 13 years until I suddenly
so you probably got dual citizenship out here.
Decided to move to Poland, and I have lived here for around 5 years. So I pretty much traveled at a very, very young age. I was around 13 years old, so it was a bit different it was a bit shocking for me moving here, and it was definitely a wild culture shock. So I'm here in Wilanów. This is near the Wilanów Palace at this beautiful park here in Warsaw, and I just wanted to discuss some of the crazy 10 shocking culture shocks I had. So let's get to it.
Let's do it.
So my first one is Sunday shop closures. So that's definitely number one on this list. In Poland, it is traditional and overall it's by law that most shops, grocery stores, and malls are closed on Sundays. So Sunday is more or less treated as a holiday here in Poland. So many of the shops, many of the not restaurants are mainly open, but more shopping and I guess recreational activities such as at the local malls here in Warsaw or in Poland in general are completely closed all day on Sunday. And that is definitely something that was crazy to me, and I treat it as a culture shock because in the US, every single Sunday, 7 times a week, everything is open in the US. And same thing even in Dubai or in the UAE as well. Most shops are open 7 days a week. So it's very, very weird, or it was a very wild culture shock for me that most stores and shops are closed on Sundays. Sundays in Poland are pretty much treated like a holiday. So mainly during these days off, people and overall the government has decided that they want our citizens here in Poland to spend as much family quality time away from work and to spend it with their family, or overall it is a little bit more religious here in Poland, so it kind of gets treated in a Catholic way on why Sundays are also closed, so then citizens and residents can spend their day going to church while also spending time with their family. So that is a major deal here for the government in Poland. So many citizens spend as much time with their family as possible and have days off. For instance, if you live in an area where you have a house, for instance, and you have a green area, it is a big no-no for someone to even cut their grass on a Sunday. Their neighbors, your neighbors, will actually kill you when they find out that you are mowing the lawn on a Sunday, because it is treated like a peaceful day. It's treated like a peaceful day where no one can work and everybody just chills and takes the day off. So that's why it is a major big deal here on why Sundays are closed, and overall just many people just go out and spend time with their family. The second point,
I can completely understand why that would be a culture shock to anybody coming from America over to Poland when you're used to everything being open 24/7 nonstop. You got access to anywhere. It feels like to anywhere. But then going to Poland where things are closed on a Sunday, I really love that. I really love the fact that the government wants people to spend time with their family, that it's looked at as religious, for people to go to church, get their worshiping in, and hey, don't be cutting your grass, don't be doing none of that on a Sunday. This is a peaceful day. You shouldn't be working. You should be enjoying time with your family. Love that, Poland, but definitely understand why it's a culture shock.
I want to add on what was such a big culture shock is public holidays. Public holidays are treated completely different than from the US here in Poland. So for example, these public holidays are deeply rooted from Catholic origins, meaning that most of the holidays here are related religiously. So, for example, we have Easter, we have Christmas, of course, those are also religiously rooted from. But at the
Yeah.
same time, we also have on August 15th, there was actually a holiday celebrating it was something religious. I really don't remember, but I remember that the day on August 15, every shop, every mall was closed, and we even have a video posted about it on how holidays look like here in Poland, because
Hey.
everything is also closed, similarly like on a Sunday. So holidays are truly treated differently, like a big major event where everybody just stays at home and celebrates this holiday.
Love
And due
that.
to the fact that they are related from Catholic origins, many people go to church on those kinds of days. They have, or I guess, a kind of like ceremony for these holidays on certain holidays. So many people go to church and they celebrate these holidays through that because they have off from work. So in comparison to how it is in the United States, usually holidays aren't really rooted from Catholic origins or anything religious related. It honestly depends, but on most holidays everything is open. Or for instance, in the US, we have it that like on, for example, Independence Day or on the 4th of July, maybe shops close a little bit earlier, but they are still open. So that's the difference between Poland and the US on public holidays.
Yeah.
Number 3,
Yeah, I would say public holidays, the only holiday that you're going to catch the U.S. closing most things, because there will still be some things open, is Christmas. That's really the only holiday that a lot of places are going to be closed. Like I said, still a couple places going to be open that you can get to. But for the most part on Christmas, most things are closed. But that is it. That is truly it. So that is a culture shock when you go over and these holidays and there's everything's closed on all of these holidays compared to the U.S. where things only seem to be closed really just on Christmas.
cash is still king. Meaning,
Always.
Poland is very cash friendly. So society, especially like in small towns or even in markets, people usually pay with cash or expect you to pay with cash.
feel
So
that.
even in, I mean, usually in bigger cities like Warsaw, like we are here, and in Krakow, people are more oriented to pay with their credit card, their debit card, or even use Apple Pay. That is definitely normal here and more, I guess, culturally appropriate for everybody to pay with their debit card instead of cash. On
Yeah.
the other hand, Poland is also not the smallest country in the world. So there
I
are
feel
different
that.
towns around
Big country.
Poland where they're really small oriented and there are smaller towns with older standards. So therefore they pay more with cash. So when you do visit Poland, I definitely authorize you to carry some cash on hand, which was a crazy culture shock for me because when I lived in the US, I barely had any cash with me. My parents barely used any cash anymore because the society was just changing onto electronically or using debit cards because they were more efficient. On the other
Yeah.
hand, when I visited markets here, I wanted to pay for, I don't know, eggs or vegetables at the market, and they were like, they only accept cash. And that was such a big, weird culture shock for me because I feel like it's so outdated. So that is definitely something I have noticed. And it's honestly important to carry some cash around as cash is still a big deal here. Cash is still a very big deal here and people definitely use it all the time. Number 4, the
I feel
language.
like while most places are going towards like cards or contactless pay, at the end of the day, I think cash is still king. To me, everywhere. I think money talks, and if you got cash on hand, there are going to be some places that are like we don't take cash, card. At the end of the day, cash is king in most places. But at least we know here in Poland, cash is king. Like you say, here in the U.S., I mean, most people are going to pay with Apple Pay. They're going to pay with their phones. They're going to pay with the credit card. They're going to pay with debit card. But most of these places will take cash. If you have cash on hand, they will take cash. But I never carry cash on me, but I do know cash is key.
Barrier. So yes, Poland is a European country, but overall, like I mentioned before, bigger cities like Warsaw and Krakow are kind of expanding on the language barriers, such as not speaking as much Polish, but also orienting and knowing English as well. So if you were to walk around Warsaw and wanted to go to a shop and you didn't speak Polish, You could definitely get along and definitely speak English with the cashier. On the other hand, smaller towns, they don't even know how to say hello in English. So I would definitely authorize that, like, Poland is still slowly expanding, but at the same time, it's still a little bit set back from the entire world, because a lot of smaller towns don't speak English and they only critically speak Polish. So that is definitely something to look out for if you're ever planning on visiting Poland, is to definitely keep in mind and know some essential Polish phrases, such as how to say hello, how are you, thank you, goodbye, etc., etc., etc. So then you can communicate in times when maybe the cashier or someone that you're speaking to doesn't speak the same language as you. And that was a very big culture shock for me when I first moved here from the US, because even though I am Polish rooted, living in the US, I always constantly spoke English, and I didn't go to a Polish school except speaking with my parents in Polish. So when I moved here, it was so crazy to me and so bizarre to me, because everybody would actually make jokes and say, "Oh my God, your American accent is so crazy," you know? And I would be like, yeah. I never grew up here. I don't have the same accent in Polish like regular Polish citizens do, or my friends did. So it was definitely something that I had to get used to, and I definitely upgraded my Polish while living here, which is definitely something that is so important, is that when you move here as a international person or as a tourist or someone that's an outsider, you definitely learn Polish faster. You start to use their phrases, and living in Poland, you can definitely learn Polish the fastest way possible, because everybody speaks Polish around you, as it is also a European country that isn't entirely expanded as, for instance, Germany or other countries around us. So I would say the language barrier is definitely there. Number 5.
Yeah, I would say that would definitely be a culture shock, coming from a culture where most of the language spoken is English to a culture where it seems like, I think from videos that I've seen, it seems like Poland they speak English like over there, and I'm sure, I guess I don't want to assume and say everybody can speak English, but I assume you can get by in Poland with speaking English. But I think, like she said, and I've seen from a couple other videos, while you're there, you should try to learn Polish. Like, you should, even if you don't become fluent, try to pick up like simple phrases, simple words that you're gonna use every day, like thank you, please, those kind of words. But I think if you're planning on moving there, then it only makes sense to actually like learn the language, because that's the language everybody's speaking around you. You want to learn. However, if you're just visiting, I assume that you can get by on English. But I mean, that would definitely, language barrier moving anywhere, definitely be a big culture shock for sure.
Quiet Sundays and holidays. So, as we mentioned before about those Sundays and holidays, people really value family orientation and quietness on Sundays and on holidays. People take these times from work off to chill, relax, and have a quiet, peaceful day. They really hate when people don't respect that. So as I mentioned before, if you were to mow the lawn on a Sunday or on a holiday, your neighbors wouldn't appreciate that. They would definitely be angry with you, and they wouldn't appreciate that, as it is a holiday. It is a Sunday for them, so they treat it as a holiday for them to relax and take the day off from work, instead of, not living in the best conditions and hearing someone lawn mowing. So Polish people are definitely some people that respect their days off and respect their Sundays and their holidays. That is definitely something to keep an eye out for. And honestly, it was definitely odd for me, because as I mentioned, usually in the US, everything was open on Sundays. Polish people tend to feel that Sundays are days for relaxing. And
I love that.
It could be beneficial, but it also could be a con as well. And Americans really, truly care about vibrant weekends. So it would definitely be a crazy culture shock for someone that isn't Polish and doesn't know the standards here, to know that things are closed on Sundays and on holidays, because they're so used to the vibrant weekends of their days off that they could just, go wild and have no problem with that. And that was definitely a weird thing for me, that whenever I would go on walks on Sundays on the weekends with my family, everybody was going on walks on Sundays on the weekends, and you would rarely see anybody out in the city center going to party or going to drink or going to do, crazy activities or shopping. That was definitely a crazy culture shock for me. Number 6.
Yeah, definitely completely understandable. Um, it's looked at as a religious day. It's looked at as a day where you're supposed to be off and relaxing. And nobody can relax if you're up mowing the lawn on Sunday, or if you're making loud noise with power tools, right? And then everything being closed, it would just, coming from America, it would take a little bit of getting used to, but I think you'd adjust pretty quickly. I don't think it'd be too difficult an adjustment to make, to understand that everything is closed on Sundays. But I absolutely love it. Like I said, I'm all for things being closed down on Sunday, for people relaxing, for people taking that time to go to church. I'm all for it.
Direct communication style. Whew. Guys,
Uh-oh.
this is going to be a big one because
Uh-oh.
honestly, it was a little bit crazy for me when I first moved here on how I thought Polish people are a little bit rude. But, you know, as an American, or even in the US, when you would go to the US, everybody was very polite. There are
Yeah.
very polite exchanges. You know, you walk around and you are in very good touch with your neighbor. You guys say hello, you know, how are you? Constant, like, I guess, chit chats at the supermarket, for example, when you're waiting in line. That is a totally normal thing in the US.
Yeah.
On the other hand, in Poland, that's a big no-no. Because people in Poland are very straightforward and direct. So meaning that whatever they have to say, they will say it. So I have had multiple instances that I thought were so bizarre to me when I first moved here, that I was on the bus and, you know, the bus driver was driving and he hit like a very like, he broke, like, oh my gosh, my English, you guys can see I'm living in Poland and my English is getting worse every day.
Yeah.
So he like stopped the bus like super like quickly.
Oh.
And there was an old lady on the bus and she was holding on and she fell down. Like she
Oh
almost
my
fell
God.
down. And the old lady was like, hey, what you're doing? Like, I almost fell down. Like, please be careful when you're driving the bus. And the bus driver stopped the vehicle. He stopped the vehicle. He got out, and he went up to the lady. He was like, maybe you should sit down next time because, you know, you're on a bus. You shouldn't be yelling at me because I'm just doing my job. So they
Yeah.
had a full-blown argument because the woman almost fell down. So as you can see, they're very direct and
Yeah.
sometimes aggressive conversations because
Oh.
Polish people truly say whatever they think on their heart. And
Oh.
they might not be polite sometimes. So that's definitely something that was crazy to me, that there are so many frequent arguments and people say things to you on the street and say whatever they feel. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a crazy, like, direct communication style that I had a weird culture shock on, because people in the US aren't usually like that. People are very kind, polite. I'm not saying that Polish people aren't kind and polite, but there are more direct communication and confrontation here in Poland that I definitely had to get used to. Number
Yeah.
7,
I feel like, I mean, that's kind of like I reacted to Germany and they said like they use direct communication as well. I think it definitely is a culture shock when you're coming from the U.S. where people are kind of walking on eggshells to try to be polite and try to not offend. Some people don't give a dang. Some people will be direct and they'll just even take it further and be disrespectful. But for the most part, I feel like it's more so indirect communication where you're kind of walking around eggshells. You're not trying to. Being direct is looked at as being kind of rude here. And so going to a country, you just have to understand direct communication is how they communicate there. There's no walking on eggshells to spare your feelings. They're going to say exactly what they think and exactly how they feel. And you just have to not take that personal. You just have to not be offended by that.
public transportation. So in Poland, especially in Warsaw, I would say, and in Krakow as well, people truly depend on public transport. Most of the city, like most of the population here in Warsaw or even in Krakow, use public transportation.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people drive as well, but they find it like not efficient for them to drive, since Warsaw is a big city. There's a metro, we have the tram, we have the bus, we have the train, we have everything. And you can honestly get anywhere around town with public transportation, which is so efficient because
That is pretty
public
dope.
transport here is only like three zloty, so it's not even like a dollar. It's not a dollar at all. So it doesn't even end up being a dollar yet. But it
That
is
is
very
incredible.
cheap, and you can get around the entire city. Obviously, it might take a little bit longer, but it
Yeah.
is so efficient and so quick that you could definitely rely on using public transportation when living in Poland, especially in Warsaw. When I first moved here, I didn't even know how to buy a ticket for my tram, and I went on the tram without a ticket, and I didn't even know how to validate it. I didn't know how to do anything. So it was definitely a major culture shock for me, as Polish people are more dependent on public transportation rather than using cars, while in the US people are more dependent on using cars rather than
Yeah.
public transportation. So as you can see, those are the two opposites, and that was definitely mind-boggling for me, as even when I lived in the UAE, it's very car dependent there as well. To get around Dubai, let's say, you really need a car, especially
really?
if you live in farther districts such as Damak Hills 2 or Silicon Oasis. There's no crazy efficient public transportation use there to get to the city center. So you would have to use a longer route, etc., while it's a 20-minute drive. So that was definitely something that bothered me when I lived in Poland and then I moved to Dubai, is that I was so used to using public transportation in Poland that when I moved to Dubai, I switched over to the car, using the car as well, like
I feel
transporting
that.
through car. So it was definitely
feel that.
mind-boggling for me that these three countries couldn't all integrate together to fit my needs. I know. So it really bothered me. But that's the thing that kind of shocks me a bit, is that
Yeah.
countries really look differently on transportation. So for example,
I
bigger
feel
cities
that.
like Dubai, they have a couple of metro lines, but do they go everywhere? Unfortunately not. While smaller cities like Warsaw, they have public transport everywhere. You can
That's
get
incredible.
anywhere here in Warsaw with public transportation, which is so efficient to me.
Yeah.
And in New York, for example, you can use public transportation in New York, but for example, in other cities like Oklahoma, you couldn't use that efficient public transportation like in New York. So it's definitely all very confusing to me as someone that has lived in 3 different countries. So yeah, I would consider that definitely a culture shock for me. Number 8.
I think that it's amazing to have public transportation at that cost. She said less than $1 is absolutely mind blowing to me. I think that's incredible. I'd be like, sign me up for every public transportation type that you can. But I think it's incredible that you don't need a car there. That they can depend on public transportation. They don't have to have a car. Whereas in the United States, a country that's built for cars, you literally do have to have a car to get around, it feels like. And I didn't know Dubai was a country. I feel like, I guess the further you are from the district, or the further district you're in, the more so that you do need a car. And so that's really cool. Shout out Poland for that public transportation. I love it.
Respect for tradition. So I would say Polish people really respect their tradition. They really respect their culture. They really respect their tradition. And it bothers them when people don't respect that tradition of theirs. So for example, folklore or Polish traditional dresses or Polish attire, Polish food, Polish holidays. People really respect that, and they take that for granted on how their country was set up. Even after World War II, they really value their traditions. For example, we are here in Wilanów Palace, and this is a palace here of like kings and queens from generations ago, and it still lies here, and many people travel here, and they come visit the Wilanów Palace all the time to come visit the history, the culture, the traditions.
That is awesome.
So that is definitely something that they have really valued on, and they really value their history. While places like in the US, we don't really have that kind of tradition. We don't have those kind of, older places or older historical monuments that truly tell our history all the way. Of course, we do have those monuments and et cetera, but rooting back from kings and queens in those royal times, we don't really have that in the US. So that was definitely something that I really appreciated, and I call it a culture shock because I appreciated how I can learn the history of where I deeply am rooted from, which is Poland. So I really appreciate that I could come visit these places and come to these beautiful parks and go see, beautiful monuments here that show Polish history. Number 9,
Yeah,
food.
I think it's cool. Being able to have that kind of history, being able to have those traditions are cool. As we know, the U.S. is a very young nation, and so we don't have that kind of history. We don't have that kind of tradition. So it's always fascinating to meet countries that do have traditions, and 100%, you should respect those traditions, and you should respect that culture and respect that history. And I think that's just a really awesome thing.
And drink customs. Ooh, now is something big, guys. Polish people love their food, guys. Let me tell you
I
that.
love
Polish people
food.
love
Okay.
their food.
Okay.
So we have thousands of soups. We have thousands of different cuisines and different dishes and different drinks that are so deeply rooted in Poland that you
Thousands.
won't. We celebrate them on every possible holiday. So, for example, on Christmas we have we have beetroot soup with different styles of pierogi and different salads and different fish and different things. And even on Christmas, it's like we have certain days where we can't even eat meat because of religious standards. So,
Oh, wow.
for example, vodka, which is a big deal here. It's like the most common drink here in Poland is obviously
Vodka is
vodka. And it's
crazy.
very deeply rooted here in Poland. And whenever people think of Poland, they think of vodka. So,
That's
although vodka
wild.
isn't the only thing that is truly a custom of food and drink here in Poland, we also have a popular soup called żurek, which is a
Żurek.
white soup. I don't know how to translate it in English exactly to tell you guys, but it has sausage, egg, and different kind of ingredients in it, and it's the most popular soup here. It's one of my favorites as well, and it is commonly eaten on Easter here in Poland. So we usually have żurek, the special soup, before we have our main dish during Easter. So that is definitely the kind of customs that I like, because I can also say that it's not basic, that it's something that is a tradition that will always live on in my family and in Polish families in general, which honestly I really appreciate. It's a very nice custom. And we also eat a lot of meat, potatoes, and bread. That is definitely something that I really appreciate in the culture here. Even with my US friends, they don't have food and drink customs like they do in Poland. So it's definitely something that I am very appreciative of, because I love my Polish food, and I find it crazy to me that a lot of Americans don't have this kind of tradition on foods, as they aren't as in detail or as like insane like Polish food is. American food is very laid back and very standard, and I really appreciate. It was a culture shock for me, as I really appreciate that everyone around me here in Poland has the same customs and traditions of food and drink, which I love. And last but not least, 10.
That does sound pretty dope. I'm huge on food and drinks. Like, I'm a big foodie. Love my food. Got to have my food. I've seen Poland's food. Aesthetically, to me, it's not the greatest looking food. That's just to me personally, but I would love to try it and see how it tastes, because I bet it does. If Poland's love it so much, I bet it does have a good taste to it. So I would love to try some of the food and just get a taste for it.
Healthcare systems. So there is public healthcare here in Poland that every single citizen here has. We have public healthcare here, but on the downside, there are really long waiting times for certain treatments. Therefore, people opt for private healthcare instead, which is faster, more reliable, and more, I guess, in depth on the different treatments that you have in that private healthcare. So it's definitely something that I am not deeply educated on. But when I did find out that we have public healthcare here, it was honestly very beneficial, because I will be honest, I don't really know the whole healthcare, how it works or anything like that. But it was definitely a culture shock for me that in the US, I really didn't hear that there was much public healthcare there. I may be wrong, but in Poland, it's completely normal for someone to have public healthcare, and people that do have private healthcare just need a little bit of an expansion on certain health needs that they need. So that is something that I really appreciate here, that my parents didn't really have to worry about healthcare because we automatically had it, which was a major benefit, and I really appreciated. So that's what I would realize is the difference. Or even in the UAE, for example, in the UAE you would have to get private healthcare, and it is also very expensive. So the fact that Poland also provides public healthcare really truly is beneficial. And I think the government, of course there are many problems with the government here in Poland, but I think there are some benefits here to it. For instance, we have 500 plus, meaning that Polish kids and Polish families, moms, until the age of 18, every single child gets 500 zloty, which is around $100 a month, for their needs. So for example, these parents get for each child. So for instance, my parents got 1,000 zloty a month, which is around $200 for me and my brother before I turned 18. So those are really beneficial things that also the government has helped. It's because some families may be struggling, and that even little push of money is very beneficial for children. And I haven't noticed it in any other country except Poland, which I think other countries around the world should really reinforce that the government really supports these children here, as some families may be struggling. So that is something that I really appreciate in this country.
I think that's definitely very awesome. Having a public healthcare system, having people having that option. Yeah, if you want faster times and everything, you can go to the private system. But yeah, that healthcare system doesn't really exist here in the U.S. It's more so you have to go private, like you have to pay monthly for whatever healthcare you want, and it's expensive. And no, the government's not kicking you some money, a certain amount of money every month. Maybe during COVID they were, but no, they're not kicking you a certain amount of money every month to help take care of your children. It's just not happening, unfortunately. But that was a great video. I feel like all of those were definitely culture shocks if coming from the U.S. to Poland that you would run into. She did a great job of explaining everything. Let me know if you maybe moved from somewhere, if U.S. to Poland or somewhere else to Poland, any culture shocks that you guys have faced, or if you moved from Poland to somewhere else, any culture shocks you faced. That's all we have. If you enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you guys next time.